Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So we have our lovely Cher here, but you are all aware of the other Cher, the singer and actress, the Academy Award winner, Grammy winning Cher. Y'all know Cher? Yes. Okay, just checking. I didn't grow up with Cher. She was a little bit before my time, and then I don't know. I like her. I mean, I saw her in Moonstruck, and I like some of her songs, but I don't know her well. But I do know this about Cher. She's an icon. Like, you don't think about Cher and she's like, oh, she's just like everybody else. She is so completely herself and has been throughout her life. So that's why they call her an icon, is because she does things according to what she feels inside of herself. And she takes chances, and she dresses in wonderfully extravagant, new, original ways. So she's original, she's unique, she's one of a kind. All of these wonderful things, and this is what we say about all of us, that all of us are part of this one love, this one power, one presence, and what a miracle it is that every one of us is this beautiful, radiant, unique expression of this one. That, as they say, every person has their own thumbprint, everybody has their own soul print. Hey, I'm like dancing. Like Elaine on Seinfeld, sorry. So, we each have our own soul print, and what a beautiful miracle it is, and how important all of our individual voices and expression is, and we celebrate that. So one time, this was when I was an assistant minister at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. I was talking to my friend Mark, and he said something to me. He said, well, you know what I like about you, Harriet, is that you're a misfit. I was like, a misfit? That doesn't have the same ringtone as original, unique, one of a kind. A misfit sort of has a negative connotation, and he's a writer. So I had to think about, he said a lot of other things, but I just tuned out because I was really focused on this word misfit. I'm like, you see me as a misfit. So I had to really and it really captured me. Like, I wasn't sure how I felt about that. And a misfit is exactly what the word says. It doesn't fit. It kind of misses the mark. You're with people, but you don't really fit. I actually think it's a really good word. When I was trying to find readings for today, a lot of them focused on, like a Steve Jobs, you're one of a kind, you're amazing, you're going to change the world, da 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 da. Then I started looking up misfit poems. Oh, and a lot of celebrities say that too. So it's great when you're like famous to say you're one of a kind. Creative people really like to be one of a kind, which is great. But as I started reading all these poems, every one of these poems were so full of sadness, so full of loneliness, so feeling like I don't belong to this world. That, yeah, I'm original, but original so much so that I can't connect with people. People feel weird about me, and I feel weird around them. And I think that's sort of the feeling tone of misfit versus unique, original, one of a kind. A misfit says, yeah, you're unique, but you're kind of lonely. Where do we go with that feeling, and how does it impact us? Well, first I want to begin with, where does this feeling tone of being a misfit come about? And I can only use my own experiences because, everything, there's 8 billion people, sociology, they've got academic papers on everything. So I speak more from my own experience because I do know that part, and I don't want to read a lot of academic papers. So it seems to me being a misfit comes from in two ways. One is it's like an inherent feeling, and two, it's a choice. And so I want you just to connect with yourself. And for me, it's both, so you might have both. But connect with that part of yourself. I'm inviting you in this moment, just connect with any part of you. It could be at any one point in your life. It could have just been a particular experience. Or maybe it's a pervasive thread that has gone through your life, this feeling of being a misfit. And was it something you had to feel like you had a choice around, or did it feel like it was inherent, or maybe both? And I want to invite all of us just to take a moment to be tender with that part of ourselves. Because my feeling is most people have had that experience of not feeling like you fit in with a particular group of people, with some place that you are, you just don't fit. And rather than always saying, yes, it's great that you don't fit, to also have that gentleness and that tenderness to care for ourselves. This is the beauty of knowing the power and the presence of infinite love is right where we are. So there is that loving presence that is right here now, and that same loving presence can hold in its energetic embrace any part of us that feels like we're not enough the way we are inherently, or things because we've chosen certain things we don't fit in. And let's hold that tenderly this morning, to be tender with ourselves. Rumi said that the light comes in through our wound, and I think those places where we feel a little bit of a misfit is a wound, can be a wound for many of us. I've shared with you before about my experience as a girl of becoming one in Christ's love, but I don't want to talk about that part of it, which was wonderful. I want to talk about the part that initiated that experience. And I've mentioned it before, that what initiated that experience, I was in third, maybe fourth, but I'm pretty sure third grade. So the rational, just so we're clear, the rational linear brain in human beings doesn't really start becoming fully orbed until around 12-ish, that's an average. That prior to that, we're more sensory feeling things. That's why children are so creative, because their prefrontal cortex, that linear brain, hasn't come in full force yet. So it allows for a lot of possibilities. So this feeling that I had that I wasn't worthy did not come from analysis. I wasn't analyzing anything. I have no memory, that doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I have no memory of thinking or feeling this way prior to that moment. I grew up in a family that I adored. I was the youngest, so often the youngest children look up to their older siblings. I had 3 older brothers. I thought they were amazing. I thought my parents were amazing. All I wanted to do was be with my family. They were my life. I lived from holiday to vacations because I just wanted to be with them, because they were the best. That moment of pain came, this is Christmas season, I'm circling around a pretend baby Jesus who I had learned was unconditional love, and I was taking that. And I just suddenly, these feelings poured out of me that I don't know where they came from, and it said, I love them, but I am so not like them. And no matter how hard I try, I will never be like them. I don't know how I knew that, and it's turned out to be true. I don't know how I knew that as a young girl. That's what I mean, the inherent part. There's just something about us inherently that we know is so fundamentally different than the world in which we're living, and that it doesn't fit. Now, that's just one experience. You could feel that way because of sexual orientation, gender identity, race, religion. You could, because of your family system, you feel different than everyone, maybe trauma that you experienced as a child. There's all sorts of things that you did not choose, but because of that thing that you felt as a kid, or even as you're getting, middle school's a really rough time, as it continues, something that separates you that you didn't have a choice about, but you feel, it makes you feel a little bit different than the room in which you're in, the square peg in a round hole. So that's one type of being a misfit. And it's painful because you can't, like in that experience, I can't change that. I knew it. Nobody else in my family knew it because I hid it really well, but I knew it. The other type of misfit experience, at least that I came up with, I didn't read an academic paper about this, so please don't come and tell me, well, you should read this book. I'm sure the book is right. I'm just going on what I know. Forgive me for that, my limitations. So the other one is, it seems to me, is by choice. There are certain things that we choose, and because we choose that, make that choice, it separates us from the crowd. And sometimes you don't even know that you're making that choice that's going to separate you, and sometimes you do. So for me, that experience was around when I was in second or third grade. We went on a field trip to the Health Museum in Cleveland, and there was this huge lung, and it was all black. And they said, "This is what your lung looks like if you smoke." And so as a kid, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to smoke. That looks really stupid. So, and my mom was a smoker, and it horrified me. Like, Mom. So it was my decision. Nobody asked me to do that. And then when I was in ninth grade, I saw the movie Deer Hunter with my parents, which gave me nightmares forever. Has anyone seen that movie? Horrifying. So my oldest brother, who did not drink, he said, well, the reason why he didn't drink, by the way, there's this brutal scene in Deer Hunting around playing this game. I don't even want to go into description of it if you don't know, Russian roulette. And it's just so mind-bendingly, psychologically terrorizing. Psychological terrorism is pretty awful. So my brother said, well, the reason why he didn't drink was because he said it was like playing Russian roulette. And I'm just like, that image is seared in my brain. He said, you don't know if you're going to have the genes that are going to connect with that or not. You have no say over it. And the only way you find out is by doing it. So I just choose not to. So I chose not to drink, which didn't seem like a big deal when you're young, but as you're going through high school, and every party there's keggers, and there are people who are trying to pour it down my throat. Like, it was like a big deal that I didn't drink. Or if I was dating someone, come on, just drink. There was such, when you're young, and this was in the 80s. I don't think, Julian didn't find any of this pressure when he was going through high school. I think it's really lessened, because those of us who grew up with it realize how intense it was. But I went to parties, but I was immediately different than everybody. And so it's been a thread throughout my life. College, it's big in college, but it didn't separate me. People didn't care as much. And then as adults, going out with the moms go out for their wine, and I'm just sitting there, and then they're like, I'll have my water, try to ginger ale, something. And but it's a different state of consciousness, and I'm the one on the outside. So that was another feeling of, just by a choice, and I never wanted to make a big deal out of it. I didn't want to call attention to myself. I wasn't doing it I'm going to be a rebel. I was just doing it to protect myself, because our family had a whole history of alcoholism, and I just didn't want to take that chance. So I didn't drink, and it put me on the outside. The question is what do we do with those things that put us on the outside? So I can make a different choice, if it's a choice thing, and that's always up to me. And there's something empowering in that. Because now if I'm a misfit, it's because I choose, and I don't feel bad about myself because of it. I can't experience everyone's experiences. You might have a different experience with that, but if I choose it, no matter what it is, if I make the choice, then there's an empowerment. I've made that choice. And so I'm not, the misfit I don't feel like a victim. I guess that would be the difference, is I made that choice. With the inherent one, that one was rough, and has been rough, and has been exactly what so many of those poems that I was reading, and they were so dark, I'm like, I got depressed just reading them. Because I did feel so fundamentally different in a way that I could not change and could not find value in the world that I lived in. And I bring this up for another reason, because I come from a very free-thinking family. Think for yourself. That was both my parents. Think for yourself. Don't be like everybody else. Be your own self. I was encouraged always to think for myself. As I've mentioned before, my dad was an atheist, Harvard-trained lawyer. He knew I loved God. He could have just used and he said this, he said, I know as your father, I could have convinced you what you were thinking is wrong. He said, but that's not my role as my father. My role as a father is to let you find your own way. And so he never once tried to change my mind. He just gave me full space. And yet, even in that sense of think for yourself, be your own person, I knew I was not safe to talk about my spiritual life. That because I never talked about it, because I kept silent, because he knew I believed in God, but he didn't know to the extent and how much it infused me. All the negative comments about religion and God, I heard them all. And they didn't know they were talking about me. They thought they were talking about other people. But I was taking that all. This is not the world I'm going to start opening up and sharing my heart. It was so hidden in me, and I'm just saying this because what made me say that as well is because we say, as I in the beginning of service, it's great, you're unique, you're one of a kind, be your individual self. But when it's something so deep in who you are and you've had to hide it, it's not easy to go, okay, well, that's all right, I'm just going to open up now, just because everyone says it's cool, because you might have a lot of experiences where you've been in environments where it's not cool. And so it gets something hidden inside of you. If something's bad happened to you, we know in trauma it becomes hidden. It becomes a source of shame or embarrassment, so you hide things really deeply. And I didn't realize how deeply I hid it until it didn't even dawn on me till just in the last few years. When I was in college, I went to a therapist for 4 years because I was so different. And the greatest thing he did was just ask me a lot of questions to help me discover who I was. But even in that process of discovering who I was, I never once shared a single spiritual experience that I had with him. 4 years with this guy, never thought to tell him. So doesn't it get better? And so one of the things that being a misfit does is it puts you on the outside of things. Like you can be in the inside of certain things. You fit in, you do well at it. I was good at sports. I was like on the inside circle there. But in general, I felt, just because my whole orientation towards life was so different than anything I was hearing out there, there's nothing mirroring it, I always felt separate from people. So there's the belief then, what would heal being a misfit is being with other people, is belonging. And I saw a lot of quotes from artists who say, misfits find other misfits, and then you feel at home. Because what we want to do, we also want to feel that connection and that belonging. We don't want to just sit by ourselves. We want to connect with other people, and other people who are misfits will understand your misfittedness, and you find home. And so I know artists, actually, I heard this even when I was at Agape, that so many people went into theater as a means, because theater really accepts people that are different. And which is beautiful. When I went to Agape, as I mentioned last week, Agape, for those of you who don't know, is a spiritual community, open, just like this, but like 2,000 people more. It's a huge. That was when I was there. It's way bigger than that now. But when I was there, it's about 2,000 people. Michael Beckwith was not a spiritual celebrity yet. So it was just word of mouth in the LA area, full of artists, full of creative people. And when I first came there, I started giving service. And as I mentioned last week, first I was just volunteering, but I wasn't really giving of myself. As I continued to give of myself, I got to know a lot of people. And then the next thing I know, I have a job and I'm at Agape. And so I'm in the practitioner classes, working at Agape. Now, Agape primarily, in that big a church, runs on volunteers. It's just, Reverend Michael's huge on volunteers, giving. He always says, you can't outgive God. God is giving it to itself infinitely in every moment, and we're just participating when we give. So there was this, everyone was serving, but they needed staff, so it was kind of a cool job to have, especially in the Department of Education. And I knew a lot of people, and I didn't think anything of it until I got engaged. For those of you who don't know, I was married prior to Jack for a short time with a gentleman who also became a CSL minister. We did it consciously we went to a practitioner after our first date and continued in everything. We did a divorce ceremony, we concluded the marriage ceremony, the divorce ceremony. He was my mentor minister after we got divorced. All love, just finding our way on this journey of becoming ministers. And we worked together. We were in the same office. We were together, and he was in ministerial school 24/7. We're always together. So we have an engagement party. Someone throws us an engagement party. And It was beautiful, it was wonderful. And then someone from my practitioner class, I'm in practitioner 2 training, and God bless her, because one of the things people used to say, oh, agape is like heaven. And no, when you're there, we are dealing with the down and dirty of being human. The thing that I found at agape is people owned and worked on their own stuff all the time, and that was the difference. It wasn't that any of us were free of our stuff. It's just that we owned it and talked about it. So one of my classmates comes up to me and she said, I was really hurt that you didn't invite me to your engagement party. Now, I don't think anyone from my practitioner class, there's like 40 people in the class, and I either had to invite everybody or nobody. But she was so honest. She said, the reason why I wanted to be invited to your party is because you're on the inside now, and I really want to be on the inside. And I'm jealous that you're on the inside and I'm on the outside. God bless her for that honesty. Because I never even saw it that way. I didn't see I'm on the inside now and before I was on the outside. And so I invite you, even as I was thinking about this idea of misfits, so intertwined with this idea of misfits as our insiders and outsiders. And even as I started going through my life thinking about being inside, outside, and I was talking to Jack, and like everyone has stories. We could go through so many stories of when we feel like we're on the inside and when we're on the outside and how it makes us feel, etc. So it was just interesting that this was the first time I really was like, oh, I am perceived on being on the inside. And on the one hand, I loved what I did, but it wasn't because I felt like I was on the inside. I never even perceived it that way. It was because finally my exterior life was mirroring a lot more of this part that I'd been hiding for so long. And it was now having the space to come out, and I was with other people. So it was in following who I was that brought me to that place. There was another miracle of being at Agape, was that it was completely alcohol-free. I didn't know that. When I arrived at Agape, I was in my late 20s. I just thought adults didn't drink. So no parties, even parties with Agape people, but not Agape sponsored, no alcohol. My Michael Torphy, the guy I married, he didn't drink. My friends didn't drink. None of the ministers drank. So I just thought, oh, this is what spiritual people do. It was not even an issue. Like, it wasn't until this morning as I was thinking about it, I never once asked my first husband, who was as verbal as I am, we talked pretty much nonstop, never even asked him why he didn't drink. Because there's 12-step. Was it a problem? Never. It just never came up. It was just so not even in the world. And for me, where that had been a constant, wherever I was in a social event, that was an issue. It was the most freeing thing in the world, where it just wasn't even an issue. You just don't drink. Spiritual community. We're here for God. We're getting high on God, as Reverend Michael used to say. That's where we go. And there was a freedom to that. So you didn't have to explain yourself. Nobody told their stories of why you didn't have to come in and why you gave up drinking, the challenges you had of drinking. They did have a group called Freedom Path, which was based on 12 steps to support people who had challenges with addiction, but it wasn't, I don't know, it just never seemed like a big thing. It was like, yeah, you go there, you get supported and loved and cared for on your journey of sobriety. So suddenly I'm on the inside. And it does feel good because I was doing what I wanted to do. But it doesn't complete the story. Because there's still the unfoldment of my soul that I had to go through. And it didn't end just by being at Agape. It didn't end just by being on the inside. The idea that I don't know if I had it or not until it happened. The idea was, oh, when I'm on the inside, then I'm going to feel good about this part of me that I've rejected, or that don't forgive me, I totally didn't reject it. I just protected it with my life. No one's getting near this part of myself. So even at Agape, where talking about spiritual experiences was like talking about the weather. Oh yeah, how's the weather? The weather's bright. Oh, this angel came to me yesterday and was telling me all this stuff. I mean, it was just like normal chatter. Even in a community like that, I never shared one spiritual experience I had. Even with my first husband, never talked about a spiritual experience I had. That's how protected I still was. And so I'm just offering that this idea of being a misfit is something wonderful and great. There's something terrifying about it too, because it's your core essence And if any one of you have had the experience that I've had for different reasons, all for different reasons, but it's not a safe world to share at the very corners of your being, because this is who you are, and if that gets rejected, they are truly rejecting you. You're going to protect it no matter what. Even if people tell you you're safe, you might protect it still. But on the other hand, as we start to get more comfortable with this part of ourselves, healing can happen and the joy can happen. I heard this incredible story, fun story by on Moth, my Moth stories, Rob Carr. And he said that he really wanted to be cool most of his life and fit in. And he said, and I was good at it. I knew how to do it. I joined the athletic teams. I talked to all the right people. I went to all the right people. I went to all the right parties. I was cool. Then I went to college. I joined the sports frat. My roommate was Chad, the captain of the baseball team. He said, I was a cool dude. And it came to the very last minute where he had to claim his major. And he realized what he wanted to claim. What he did claim was he wanted to be a theater and performance art major, which was so against this coolness that he had established and spent his life establishing as an athlete and cool dude. So for his junior year, he would go to all his classes, but he wouldn't tell anyone. He hid that. And he said they would ask us to do these crazy exercises like, do something that makes you completely different than everybody. So he said, like this one guy, they would do crazy things, but this one guy, it wasn't a thing out there. He just opened himself up and said, I've never told anyone this, I've known it. I just need to let you know that I'm gay. And everyone welcomed him and warmed him up. And he said, and I felt so stupid because my crazy thing that I did was I wore boxer briefs instead of just boxers. He's like, how am I going to share that now? Everyone's comfort level and being different. But it was doing these crazy theater exercises, and I thought they were kind of stupid, and for the whole junior year, nobody liked me there either because I was kind of looking down on these stupid exercises. He said, but the teacher was so determined. She kept saying, jump out the window, Rob, jump out the window, meaning give everything. And so finally, it's coming near the end of the year, and she says, like he said, she just decided she's going to throw me out the window. So she said, all right, class, it's a beautiful day. We are going to go out and do our exercises on the soccer field. He's like, no. He said, I turned white. So we're going out there, and he said, my fraternity's right there. And I'm just like, please don't come out, please don't come out. And so she said, okay, we're going to partner up. And what I want you to do, and she goes, you're my partner, Rob. And so what we're going to do is we're going to be butterflies. And I want you to float like a butterfly. I want you to do an interpretive dance like a butterfly. And so he's like, so I do it. I goes, I'm floating like a butterfly, I'm floating. And then I see out to the right, my Chad, the captain of the baseball team, comes out, and he's looking, he goes back in, and I'm fluttering. And he goes, and then 30 guys come out. And like they're all heckling me, that's right, Rob, you flutter away there, you be that butterfly. and so he's just totally embarrassed. So he's got to go back because this is where he lives, and he just goes to his frat brothers. He goes, look, I just got to come out and share what I've known a long time. I'm a thespian. And he said, and the world didn't fall apart. They accepted me. They thought it was a little weird, and so we had to have conversations about that, but they accepted me. And he said, they did every time I walked into a room, they used to play Dancing Queen. But he continued, and then so he went to a party with the thespians at the end of the year, and he just relaxed. He finally just accepted this is what I love to do, and he's dancing. But he loves both worlds. See, we put all these walls up. And so as the summer, he's integrating and just feeling so good. I came back. This is how he ends his story. I came back, and I was ready. I was ready to embrace all of it, to have these two groups get to know each other. He goes, I came back ready to flutter like no one was looking. And he did. So when we come out of our shell, When that part of, every time we share, and you all know this, because we've all been on this journey a long time. You know those hidden places that when you've shared them, it feels really good, and it's accepted, and people go, oh yeah, we don't think you're horrible. We don't think you're a weirdo. Even as your unique self, you are welcome and you're loved, and you don't know that until you share it. The joy of it is that part of who you are, as Rumi said, that wounded place is where the light comes in, is the essence of so much of how you express in this world. It's so much of the heart of who you are. The heart of your story is that wound. And the more we open ourselves to that wound, there becomes a joy, a freedom, a lightness of being like floating like a butterfly, like I don't have to hide myself anymore. And there's still loneliness because it isn't one event. So stories like that are great. When I listen to it, I'm laughing, I'm crying, I'm feeling great. But that's just one story. There's a continual unfoldment for all of us. So for me, remember when I was told that I was a misfit, so lovingly, I was a minister. When I was at Agape, Michael used to really push me to speak my truth. And so I got better and better at speaking my truth, and I found people liked me. Even though I didn't always agree with what people were saying, they didn't need me to agree. They didn't need me to be anything. So I was finding acceptance, and they asked me to be their representative at the graduation. So I had a lot of success at it. But I was only partially coming out. And this is what I mean. It's a continual journey. So there's this whole other part of me that I was still hiding, because I still hadn't talked about any of my spiritual experiences yet. I could talk about my ideas that were different. I was comfortable in my intellect. But the spiritual stuff, so that's, as I've been a minister, it's come out more and more. And I see Karen Treat there. And I wouldn't have remembered this, but she reminded me of when I was at Oakland Center. I think that was one of the first times I talked about Jesus. Because I knew, like we have the Christ principle, but it's sort of all approached in a very, to me, intellectual way, where I had a very heartfelt connection. And I couldn't talk about it. I always felt so afraid to talk about it. And what you've shared with me that helped me remember, is I talked about Jesus as being my superhero. Because I had young kids who were watching all these superhero movies. I'm like, well, Jesus is my superhero. So I'm trying to make it palatable so people don't freak out on me. But there was still, what Mark was saying, was there was still this part of me that I kept apart. And he felt that. And he kind of liked it because he wanted to know that part of me that I kept away. And so this month is the Lighthouses, our community's 12-year anniversary. And for me, this journey has been about continuing to explore myself. And so you've heard me share a lot of spiritual experiences. And it sounds like I've been talking about it my whole life, but it's new. And then I started writing blogs about it, and what I didn't even really understand disassociation until it happened. One time someone came up to me after service, and they were talking to me about one of the spiritual experiences I've shared. My first reaction is, how do you know that? Like, who told you I had that experience, and what right do you have to talk to me about what happened to me? And I'm like, oh, I talked about it. And I recognized that even though I'd begun taking the action of telling some of these experiences, I was still disassociating. It was too much. And it's only been in the last few years that I've been writing about it. I was writing about it, and I just had this dawning moment. I'm like, oh, this really happened to me. Like, I'm not just telling this thing, it actually happened to me. It's like re-owning it. And these aren't even bad experiences. These are good experiences, but they were bad experiences for me in terms of my world and the people that I loved and adored and how condescending they were about people like me. So to actually feel that experience in the face of other people has been this huge healing process for me. And so what I want to say about who we are as the Lighthouse Here's Kathy. Kathy's asked me to write a little blurb about who we are, and I just had the hardest time writing it because every time I start writing it, I'm like, well, it's also this, and it's also that. And I recognize it's so hard for me because what I want our community to be is a place of this pure oneness of unconditional love where every single person has the space and the time, because it's not a one-time event, of discovering yourself, of discovering your soul, of discovering your heart, and it's going to be unique to every person. I just shared one little tiny person's experience, but everybody here, everybody there, everyone has this extraordinary soul experience that encompasses so many things. And for me, the light is where we get to be tender and share that uniqueness to find the joy in it. Because what I know about my journey is I wouldn't want any other journey but this one. It's the greatest joy of my life, but it's also been such a source of pain, source of separation and loneliness. But the healing process has been extraordinary. And as I know this for myself, it is my deepest, deepest desire for that to be the unfoldment for everybody here. Everybody's in different places on your spiritual journey. Everyone's in different places of how much you're willing to share and how much you keep to yourself. But maybe one thing I want to throw out here is, because it was a surprise to me, I didn't even know how much I had hidden from myself and others. Like, I didn't know, like it wasn't when I was at Agape, I didn't tell people because I made a choice. I wasn't even aware that I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't even aware that I wasn't talking to my first husband, who's a minister, about anything that I've experienced spiritually. It wasn't a conscious choice. So sometimes when we're in a community of unconditional love, a love that says you are loved no matter what, who you are, when we say that, we mean it. And we mean that when you're in classes, you're not in classes to discover what we want you to discover. You are not here to make us happy. The entire purpose of our spiritual education is for you to discover who you are, how you interpret and live and learn your own soul's journey. That is the greatest joy on the planet, is to undiscover and be revealed your own soul journey. You will not find a greater joy, because who you are is joy. When Spirit made you, it was made from love, it was made from joy. That is who you are. And the sadness or the isolation or the loneliness, that's the stuff that's covered it up. And so we are about the uncovering. Again, not in our image, not in some overarching, this is what it has to look like, but we're following you. We're like the Montessori. We follow you, that as you learn these different principles, as you learn what is true, how profoundly and deeply loved you are, and we create the space and the time for you to self-discover, that you will discover the incredible miracle and the joy of who you are. And whether the rest of the world knows it or not, every one of you is an icon. Every one of you. And that's not just saying it lightly. That's not saying a flippant, oh yeah, you're an icon. I mean, from the deepest part of my soul to your deepest part of the soul, because you reflect God's image in your own unique way, you are an icon. And we are on that journey to self-discover that icon, because you might be able to see it in someplace else, but have a harder time finding it in your soul. It's the truth of every single one of us, every single one of us. And that's what we're here to experience, the joy of being a misfit. Let's pray. The joy of being our unique and beautiful self. In the deepest parts of our souls, those parts that might be invisible to everybody else, but it's never invisible to this infinite loving presence. This presence that is absolute and unchanging. It doesn't come and it doesn't go. It is ever present, always loving itself as all of its creation. In this moment, this entire universe, the entire cosmos is loved and love itself. and that beautiful, radiant, unlimited, unconditional love, that unconditional joy, that unconditional delight is at the center of our being even now. So we breathe that in. We breathe in the tenderness of any part of us that feels a little bit misfitty. We breathe in that tenderness and that light, and we breathe in more light and more compassion and more nurturing energy and more light and more nurturing energy and more tenderness. And we discover that at the center and the core of our being is this pure, innocent, radiant icon of pure spirit. Each and every one of us, unique and magical, mystical. This is who we are. And so we carry that into all of our life experiences, in the mundane experiences, in the everyday life. We are an icon. We are a beautiful, radiant light of pure spirit. We always, 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 always belong to spirit. We always belong to love. We always belong to joy. And what a great gift it is to be on this journey of discovery and unfoldment with one another, with every radiant being on this planet. And we especially give a blessing to our community, the Lighthouse community. All those who have been part of this community in the past, all those who are part of this community today, and all those who are part of our community in the future. We bless that healing grace of discovery, of unfoldment, of love. And as we continue to go on this unfoldment, I know we are all holding every person and experience on this entire planet in this vast unconditional love that knows no separation and no borders. As we heal, the world heals. As we heal and find the joy of being us, we become that place where others can discover the joy of being themselves. What is better than this? It is not us, but this divine light through us that has made this prayer so. In deep abiding gratitude, I let it be, and I invite us all to say together, and so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.